Yes, please. I'm glad it's now. Okay. Hello, folks at home. You can hear me breathe, can't you? Okay. It's Don Tishner. Hello. Thanks for coming. I hate it when I can hear myself breathe. Okay. Okay, so now we'll take a moment to settle the teacher down. Really bring your mind's awareness to your body sitting here. And try to get your thoughts to be focused on sitting here, leaving behind whatever you were worried about earlier, or all the business of getting here. Letting it go, planning for later. And just notice, how's your body doing? Check in with your mind. Make sure it's present here with your body. I have to drink water when I hear that water. Oh. Now remember the reason you decided to show up today. Let that settle in your mind. And from that reason, try to generate positive intention, positive motivation to use your time this morning here well. And rejoice that you set the intention to show up and that you showed up. Many of us have moments where, we decide to go to a teaching and then we kind of go, oh, not feeling so great, or it's a beautiful day or whatever, and we don't go. That's really a missed opportunity. And bring your loved ones to mind. Really make the wish that whatever we do here this morning, whatever your mind does this morning, will benefit your state of mind, which will ripple out to benefit your loved ones. And in fact, ripple out to benefit all those beings you interact with today. So keeping this in mind, let's recite the For Immeasurable prayer. It's on page 34. It's on the screen almost. So remember that the first line is sort of the definition of love in Buddhism. So the immeasurable mind of love. We're trying to generate the immeasurable mind of love for all sentient beings. And it's the wish for them to be happy. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And of course, the second line is compassion, the definition of compassion. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. This is the mind of immeasurable joy, the joy of seeing, the happiness of others, instead of like jealousy or, wish it was me, just being happy when others are happy. And that wish that they have the kind of happiness that doesn't stop. Next. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And of course, equanimity is the foundation of being able to have this universal affection for all sentient beings, this universal wish that, no matter whether you like them, don't like them, whether they're doing terrible things or not doing terrible things, that we know that the basis for stopping terrible things is, being free from suffering, and having a happy mind. People who cause harm do not have a happy mind. They don't have a peaceful mind. Even if they think they do not. So we don't want our wishes to discriminate based on whether we think they deserve it or not. Okay, so now the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. It's on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So, how's your mind? How's your observation? How's your pausing going? Does everybody know what I mean by pausing? What's the essential thing to remember about pausing? I haven't taught this, so good luck. What?
Well, it's not reactive, it's responding.
Well, it creates a condition for us to be able to respond instead of react. If we pause, that space that we're giving our mind allows us to choose the next thing. Doesn't guarantee it. We pause and then we have to kind of motivate ourselves, to be responsive rather than reactive. So yes. What else does pausing? So it's, this is our just creating this habit is the opening we have to changing, all our habits, because reacting is just our habits going into play,
It can be the difference in the rest of your day or your experience with that individual.
Absolutely. It's a condition for everything positive. It's pausing and choosing how to respond as opposed to just reacting from whatever conditions we're experiencing. So Rinpoche says, every time a problem arises, the essential thing is to immediately become aware that the problem comes from your selfish mind. So just take that thought. That selfish mind is created by self-cherishing thoughts. What is that saying? You and your words. How about we rephrase that to, it means all your thoughts are about me, about the I. What do I want? Self-cherishing is really about, we use a phrase like self-centeredness more often, but it's that we're putting ourselves foremost in our minds. And that's where the word selfish comes from. I mean, it's that, okay, what about me? So when problems arise, the essential thing is to remember that the cause for this problem is an action from our past that was motivated by the self-cherishing thought or self-centered thought. So under the influence of that self-centeredness, we've done some action that is now resulting in some problem that we see as a problem, for us. But that problem is not just related to your past action. It's also related to being under the influence of the self-centered thought in this moment. So it's both. So it's not only just from past actions, but it's also our continued habit of coming from a place of self-cherishing that creates these conditions of these problems. It's one of the conditions that allows problems to arise. Some of this is semantics. Okay? If we can understand that we see things as problems because we experience them in relation to our self-centered mind. It's a problem because we don't like it. We don't want it to be happening. If we have set aside that self-centered mind, whatever's happening doesn't have this flavor of problem. So that's why just having a self, coming from that angle all the time, is a condition for problems to arise. So working on this ability to go, you pause and you try not to go to, this is a problem. I don't like this, which is something that creates that, reactive mind. Well, so, and instead, training our minds to kind of go, to, be open and look at it from the point of view of other. Is this making sense? Are we now completely jumbled up?
Makes sense. It's the doing.
So if we train ourselves into recognizing something that traditionally we respond to as a problem, as, this condition is reminding me of how influenced I am by self-centeredness. It's an opportunity to help me destroy the self-centered thought. What is that a condition for? This is really a stretch for most of us. If you see it as a weapon against your own source of suffering, your self-centered thought, what does it become? Yes.
Solution for that suffering.
What's the solution for that suffering? So what does that make this moment?
Beautiful opportunity.
A beautiful opportunity. Can we see why mind training is important? We are so habituated to thinking that when things go wrong, yuck, and that we have every reason to feel yuck, like not again, whatever, the timing's terrible or whatever, if so unconditioning ourselves to that reaction takes effort. But so one of the ways to motivate ourselves to do that is to sit and really think about all these things. That problems really reflect our own self-centered thought. And that if we learn to let go of that self-centered thought, we won't have any problems, which is like an unbelievable thought, isn't it? So we really have to look at that. Why would that be true? And we have to use the logic, even though there's a part of our mind, because of our habit, that's going to resist that. That's going to go, yeah. That child mind that goes, yeah, I know it's good for me, but we have to, recognize this is why we're still experiencing the world as full of problems. Because we've made it all about our self-centered thought. That's how we relate to everything. Am I going to like this or am I going to not like this? Is this going to work out for me? Is this got something in it for me? We do all of this and we are just setting ourselves up for suffering after suffering after suffering. And we have to really think about this again and again and again. We read about it. We read books like Transforming Problems so that we can really investigate whether there might be something true about the teachings. Maybe it's true if I pause, give myself that opportunity to change my perspective from the self-centered perspective to just maybe the facts or the other person involved, if there's another person involved. Because this is the amazing thing about instead of being self-directed or, being other-directed, all that sense of the self not getting what it wants isn't present in the mind. That's how we reduce our suffering right away. Because if we're not thinking about our own suffering, that part of our habit is not present. Sometimes when you're in pain, if you're able to whatever it is you like to do, you play a video game, you read a book, you go for a walk, you do something to distract yourself from that pain, okay? And then when you successfully distract yourself from the pain, you can recognize the fact that, I can, you just feel better, and if you notice that you're capable of having relief from the pain without the pain actually going away, we can see how important our mind is. If we can just turn our mind away from the pain, we don't notice the pain for those moments that we've turned our mind away from it. Now, obviously, this is all a matter of degree. We can reach a state where no pain, no matter how great, it's going to bother us. That's what, enlightened beings can do. Bodhisattvas can do. but we might not be able to do that. But if we've trained our minds to, okay, how can I use this moment of great pain as an opportunity? Because it was caused by my self-centered thoughts, which motivated some action in the past where I harmed somebody, and now I'm feeling that kind of harm. What can we use that as an opportunity for, that moment of pain?
Taking practice of purification.
I'm sorry?
Purification.
Yes, all of those, but what specifically can you do with something like illness?
Taking
Take it from who?
everybody.
Everybody. That's a big key. Don't leave that phrase out. So you kind of recognize, oh, I'm not the only one feeling this bad. So this is an opportunity for me to practice thinking of others, and then turning that into the wish that may I be the only one suffering in this way. If I gotta suffer, may it just be me. I'd be happy to take all this suffering from others so no one else is feeling this way. Yeah, well, it's an opportunity to develop the mind that thinks of others. Instead of thinking about what this pain is doing to you, remember all the others who are in pain, just like you. This is the truth of suffering. But if we can take that on as an opportunity to create the cause for happiness in the future, everybody wins. Why do the people around you right now, how would that benefit them? I'm trying to pull all this together in our last little talk until November. So good luck.
You become a better example.
I don't even know what's in your mind. I'm not recommending telling everybody that this is what you're doing.
By your behavior.
By your behavior. What's different about your behavior?
You become more compassionate.
It's not going to change your behavior in that moment towards the people around you.
Less conflict,
Why?
because you may not, hopefully, if you're actively doing this practice, you'll take your pauses, you won't be reactive, you'll be more empathetic and have a more cohesive existence.
We're asking a lot of ourselves, aren't we? It's just that in that moment, while we're really trying to transform our pain into an opportunity for compassion, great compassion, where you're willing to take on the pain of all other sentient beings, you're not thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about your pain in the same way. So when somebody else, comes in the room, you're not going to be coming from the place of your own pain. So nothing, we are affected by getting caught up in what we're experiencing that we don't like. And that becomes a condition not to be mindful that we've got other people around us and we might not treat them well if we're just thinking about our own pain, or we're just thinking about, I don't know. I mean, this is the point, is that the more we can train ourselves to let go of that obsession we have with, the self, what is the self going to get? The more we're very aware of others, and that awareness of others allows us to be considerate to them. If we're absorbed with whatever's going on with us, we barely notice other people, except in relation to whether they're helping us or hurting us. That's the extent. And that causes our own suffering, because we're just kind of dwelling in our own suffering. We're forgetting that others have that, have an effect on us. I really have to ask, and I know this is so obnoxious, why do people not sit in the front row? I mean, you're still 17 miles from me. So, they're really far back. So I just want to suggest that if you feel kind of closed in, and maybe that's why you do it, is to feel kind of closed in. If you're in the front row, you can get up with ease and not disturb anybody because you have more room. You have to step over Steve, but, he's very kind. So just pointing that out. I feel like I always have to do this and that. We've done better with staggering the chairs today, so I can see people. I like that. Because it's all about me. Whether I'm happy. Okay. My packing list is up on the screen. I don't want to look at that anymore. I remember to pack the robes you have on back in the suitcase. All right. So we need to remember these things, that when we're experiencing suffering, experiencing an event as a problem, the source of that is a negative mind in the past, as well as a self-centered mind in the present. So the past action, created the cause for, in some future, there's all the conditions come together and some suffering event arises, right? That we see it, we label as a problem. We label it as a problem in the present because of our self-cherishing mind. So if we keep working towards recognizing where is your I in the picture and choosing to respond from a different place than what's in it for me. Or how could this happen to me? Never, self-focused thought we're having. But so first we have to train ourselves in pausing. We also need to be thinking about these things when we're not in the thick of daily life, when we're just taking some time to ponder things. How can I help myself be happier? You read a text and you think about it. Okay, is it really true that my mind is the cause of my suffering? Not my body, not the external things, but it's the way my mind is responding to the events that are arising. So one exercise you can think about is, what would it be like to not have the self-centered mind? To really try to imagine how, so you can take up different scenarios in the past week and kind of go, okay, if I wasn't thinking about myself and what was in it for me, or what I didn't like about this, or how would, what might it have looked like? What would it have looked like if I hadn't been irritated? If I just take the irritation out?
You'd be happy.
Probably. And that's so you have to really look and go, maybe if say you were offended, hurt by someone's words, and you look at that and say, what if I didn't take that as a personal offense and took it instead as a symptom of their suffering and tried to respond in a different way, not about me, but about, oh, what's going on? And we have to really look at these possibilities to turn these problems into opportunities for happiness.
The radio today, they were talking about sometimes our mind is very loud. Is that a clue to us that we're being very self-centered? if we find ourselves, our mind is just very loud at some time.
It can be, especially depends on what you're thinking. And often what we're thinking when it's loud is we're making some judgment about someone else. You know, I mean, it's just on the way here, some guy, you know, I'm in a 45-mile-per-hour zone and I have a free lane in front of me. I'm going 45, right? And this guy over here stuck in the back of the line decides, okay, this is be a good time to get in that lane that has no traffic, right? Not taking into account where I'm coming, you know, in the speed. So he pulls over and I had to slam on my brakes. They didn't squeak or make that horrible sound or da 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 da. You know, and I thought, you idiot, I gotta hit you. The idiot being the most important part. And then I really had to laugh about how I've done that. In Florida, I frequently do that. I change a lane just because, you know, the 17 people stopped, you know, and da 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 da, you know, and I'd like to get through the green light, you know. And do I take into account how fast the people are going? Sometimes. But do I actually know how to figure that? You know, like, okay, they're probably going the speed limit and I have this much space. I mean, do I do the math and figure out if they'll have time to stop and not hit me before I change lanes? No. Well, why am I surprised? This happens to me too. You know, I expect everybody else to be doing that calculation and, you know, make room for me. But it's funny how we do this, you know, and it isn't like our thoughts are purely negative because one of our concerns is the other person. You know, I'm thinking, there's an old person in your car. You're driving your father somewhere, you know, I'm thinking, you're just terrible, 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 terrible. But mainly I'm concerned. So, you know, and I don't know which would have been worse, you know, like wrecking my car, you know, certainly hurting someone would have been the worst, but if it didn't hurt anybody, you know, then what would it be? Wow, that's inconvenient. You know, I don't know. Because I was reacting. I wasn't pausing and responding. I was slamming on the brakes, which I needed to do. Sometimes we have to respond quickly. But my mind didn't have to immediately go to idiot. Don't you know? I almost hit you. You know, and that would have been your fault.
Not according to the officer.
Yeah, of course not. Because they can't see who was miscalculating. You know, especially if they managed to, you know, you slow down enough so that you don't hit them on the side where it shows they were cutting across the lane, you know, but you hit them in the back, then who was it, you know, who's going too fast? But this is the thing. Instead of all that junk that we can, I mean, have all this whole conversation about why they did wrong, I didn't do wrong, and why they threatened my life, and oh, I have to settle down now, you know, all that kind of stuff, all start with that self-centered focus. You know, because I could have had the thought while I'm slamming on my brakes and recognize I'm not going to hit him. Oh, how wonderful. I didn't hit them. I still have good enough reflexes to respond, and I didn't hit them. Yay. And I totally understand why the guy wanted to get out of the line of 17 cars to be able to go through the light. Because I get it. I want to do that too. You know. But it's that being habituated when fear arises, you know, fear of I might get hurt, you know, that kind of thing, which is really a very strong, you know, that's that self-preservation instinct, very strong. Those moments are some of the hardest moments to not go self-focused. That's what ignorance is all about, you know.
Yeah, I've just changed the habit recently. But you know how when ambulances pass by you, you used to be concerned about, oh, now the traffic's going to jam up because they've been accident. But now I worry about, you know, now I'm concerned about the people that are involved.
Right, and that changes the experience of of the inconvenience of ambulances, or I always get startled, I always feel like, where's that siren? Because I can't tell. So, but it's like, yeah, I mean, so that, and then you can immediately go to prayers for the people who need the ambulance. Somebody said something. Mary, did you have something to say? Share? Okay. How are y'all doing at home? All right. People are thumbs up. Okay. Good deal. Could show your picture. I could see the thumbs up. But that's again about me. So, oh boy.
That's a good like interjection. Problem. That's about me.
Yeah. It really is. Retraining our minds doesn't need, I mean, we need that reflective time spent on all the logic of all this. We really do need that. Because if we use our reasoning, we develop wisdom about it, and we know that there is a point to doing this. But in the moment, we just train ourselves in little catchphrases like, my catchphrase is, where's the eye in this picture? I know my eye is in here, Just, what did you just say? What's yours?
That's a good interjection. You said that's about me.
That's about me. Yeah. Oh, that's about me. As soon as we're uncomfortable, we know it's about me. You wouldn't notice if it wasn't about you. Do we get that? So we have to think about that. Is that true? If we're thinking about the other person, we wouldn't even notice our own discomfort. Right there, your suffering is decreased.
An experience with friends, and they began to gossip about another.
Yep.
I felt very uncomfortable. It's not doing
Okay.
But I realized it was about me, and I was feeling uncomfortable, even though I wasn't participating.
Right.
I felt so. It really became about my feelings. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So we, because if it's about our discomfort, what we say to the others can be reactive to make ourselves feel better. And we want to point out their mistakes. And gee, do you have to be so negative? Gee, I'm tired of this gossiping. We get reactive and judgmental. And then it escalates. It makes everything worse. You think you were uncomfortable before. So now you can feel self-righteous. And later on, you're going to feel uncomfortable. So, we have to remember that oftentimes we say something to end our own discomfort. It doesn't help the other person at all. It is just simply we think it's going to make ourselves feel better. And all it ends up being is that we create the cause for suffering in the future. We say something unskillful, we do something negative, and we created the cause to have the same kind of uncomfortable feeling. And we're training ourselves to be reactive. So the more we can train ourselves to pause, and most of the time in the beginning, the correct response is nothing. It's not engaging, it's just really listening more. Okay, I need some more information. Or I don't need to be involved in this conversation at all. Like the gossiping, I don't have to, I don't have to. And we can learn to do it without the self-righteous I can't say that word. Thank you. Yeah. Because that is pride. Oh, I would do better. I am doing better. That's not useful. If we instead use these as opportunity when we're not talking, we're not judging in our minds, we're not becoming whatever. Instead, if we're going, what makes this activity harmful to those who are engaging in it, to what I've engaged in it in the past? You can't be hearing it if you never did it. You know, that's the cause for it. That's why you're in that situation. Mary.
Yeah, I was in a situation with some other people. We were sitting around a table, and some of the people began to talk about Black people in an unkind way and saying things. And I wanted to say something, but then I thought, no, I just got up and left.
Okay.
Was that an okay
I'm
response?
not going to tell you what's the best thing to do.
Because I felt bad that I just got up and left. And then
Okay,
I
well, then
felt
you
I
have to
should
work with
said
that.
something.
Well, we all need to develop skills, right? When we don't have them, the best thing to do is walk away.
Okay.
You know, I'm not giving you permission to just walk away, Mary. I'm not saying what you did was right or wrong.
Okay.
Now mute yourself. Okay.
I am. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay. So we have to, if we pause, we can take that moment to say, am I being reactive or am I being responsive? Like, you know, oh, I'm not sure I agree with that. You know, whatever was just said. You know, and do I want to just engage in maybe a helpful conversation about different points of view? Or do I want to point out they're jerks? You're a racist jerk. Well, that's going to be helpful. And it's also not true. Because that implies they're always a racist jerk. Yeah, get over it, Rebecca. Do we even know what that means? I mean, really, we have to think, when we pause, we have to understand that those responses are reactive. You know? Yep. Thanks for helping.
I think we have to understand how to separate things and to judge that the person did a stupid action, but they're not stupid inherently.
Well, yeah, they're certainly not racist inherently. None of us are inherently anything. We're conditioned. That's not to blame others. We're part of the conditioning. We practice. You know, we hear things and we repeat it. We practice it.
There's one more thing. I don't think we like when people judge us because we want people to, we want us to be accepted that we can change. So when we judge people that way, like that guy's a jerk and he was always a jerk, he'll always be a jerk, you are taking away the possibility that person can change, which is one thing that you want to have, that possibility to change. So you want something for you, but you don't want it for them because you're judging them like they are always like this, they will always be like that.
And it's a simple way out, isn't it? To just say, well, they're hopeless. I won't do anything. But if we can learn to kind of pause, you know, and learn the skills, there's a group called what is it?
Courageous conversations.
What?
Courageous conversation.
Courageous conversation. Well, it's similar to that. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, but it's people trying to learn skills to speak up in situations like whoever it was who brought that up. I can't remember. Mary. So, you know, but it's really worth exploring the possibility. This is an opportunity, you know, to help discuss something instead of be reactive. You know, I saw this model by my dad. You know, my dad would, my stepmom is a racist, and she would say things, and my dad would kind of go, you know, I don't think I agree with that. I don't think it's really true that, you know, all Black people are this way or that way, you know. So, whereas I'm sitting there screaming, you know. So, you know, he was taking the opportunity to have a conversation with his wife where they disagreed to perhaps, you know, see what happens. So the more we can, you know, look at people as just like us, whole, flawed people that can change, you know. But if we're reactive, then what are we? What are we doing? We're matching their behavior. They've jumped to a conclusion, you know. That's what our judgments are. We're concluding something, you know. And then when we react, you know, we're doing the same thing. You're a racist jerk. You know, you just spend all your time gossiping. You know, so this is the problem. We don't want. Yep.
Can I just say something about that also? And thank you for bringing it up. But I did one of those courageous conversations trainings. And the other thing that has to do with working with your mind is understanding that if they're a white person and you're a white person, they were shaped by the same, you know, dominant experience or experience of being part of the dominant race, right? I mean, their reactions and they went in a different direction with it, or they went in the historically dominant direction with it. And you're now more aware of how that's problematic, but you're still having to confront what it means to be white and what whiteness means. And that is going to help you understand them, the racist people that you're trying to, you know, you're trying to address. I don't know, for whatever that's worth.
Here, Tali. Okay, so thanks, Tal. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, because some of that reactiveness is our own embarrassment about our own conditioning. You know, it's, you know, it's if there's an I in there, you know, and that desire to prove that I'd never say something like that comes from that place. You know, I mean, because, you know, where someone might say something about a Black person, I'm much more likely to say it about a man. That's where I lump all the problems of the world. If women ruled the world, you know, it'd be the same, you know, it'd be a mess, but it'd just look different. And I think that would be better. So yeah, not true, right? So we can use all of these things as opportunity. Like Tal did, you go and get some training so that you can look at it from different perspectives. So you can be part of us rather than you over there, you know? So it's about trying to figure out where we can connect here. And some of that connection is just from, I'm willing to listen to your point of view. Will you also listen to my point of view? Can we have a conversation?
And that, like, in this gossiping scenario, so they asked me, well, what do you think about what happened? And so, I said, well, that wasn't my experience.
Yeah, and that's a very good thing to point out to people. Yeah.
But they wanted to continue. Well, what do you mean? How could you not?
Yeah, well, right.
But I just backed off.
Yeah. So this is the thing. We all want validation for what our experience is like. This is what I mean by when I say we're rehearsing our anger, and then we call up our friends and say, can you believe? Wouldn't you feel the same way? We want justification for suffering. It's just like hilarious when you really think about it. when we rehearse uncomfortable situations by talking about them to others and going in that direction of, can you believe the conversation they were having? You know, we're putting ourselves right back in it, stirring ourselves up, and reinforcing our habits of being reactive. So sometimes the hardest thing to do is disengage, just not go there. You know, when it starts to rise in your mind and you have that urge to share it with someone, to kind of go, I don't want to rehearse this. To have a phrase like, oh, that's about me. You know, I don't want to practice this mind.
My grandmother had a way of commenting on that very common idea. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's a very common idea.
And this is the kind of help, you know, because we've all heard that, you know. But it doesn't mean we can't say things that are not what you would call nice, but are, you know, constructive learning for ourselves and others. Not every conversation has to be just, you know, polite chit chat. We can talk about difficult things, but we can only talk about them if we are incorporating the use of pausing and responding and listening, not being reactive. Yes, Graziella.
I'm thinking that a lot of it has to do with, in my case, my tone. If I have a tone of righteousness, it's not that sort of superiority. That conversation is going the wrong direction from the get-go.
Yeah. So if you notice the tone and look for things like, is my tone self-righteous? You know, that's that thing. Oh, I've made it about me. I've made it about, oh, my judgment is superior to yours. You know, these are hard habits to change. And this is why you have to sit around and think about why it's important to do so. Those are the times you can go, what's in it for me? What, you know, how will I benefit if I think about this and change these habits? And then try to imagine, what would it be like to not be judgmental? What would it be like to not be reactive? What would it be like to never get irritated? No, what would it be like to not always be overwhelmed? Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like, oh, you know, some people say, oh, but enlightened life would be so boring. They're missing the fact that, no, bliss arises. We don't just go blank. Just, you know, happiness arises. We're creating the condition and the cause. So we have to remember that too, that it's not just that we create the causes for suffering. What creates the causes for pleasantness?
Realizing dependent arising.
Realizing dependent arising, that everything has its causes and conditions and ends up with a result, and we're interdependent. But what is that? What does realizing dependent arising? It's not just realizing it, it's the effect of realizing it. Cherishing others. You know, we want to understand the mechanics of it. You know, if I sit here and recognize things are interdependent, dependent arisings, that people are conditioned, that I'm conditioned, and that we can change. We're not fixed. We're not inherently one way or the other. We can change. So thinking about, you know, things are dependent arising, that can have the result of being less judgmental, right? If we're less judgmental, we're creating less actions that are negative, that are going to result in suffering. What if we go one step further? What's a further step?
Impermanence?
Just somebody said it, I think, like cherishing others. So the next step is to, these situations where we actually think we turn our minds about the other person. So we try to be a condition to benefit the people around us. That creates happiness in the future. That it creates the cool breezes that, in my opinion, are better than anything. Or the warm, if you are cold-natured, that creates the flowers and the sunsets and is our kindnesses, our generosity, our patience. Things are attractive because they practice patience. It makes them appealing to others. So everything that we experience, not just the rotten stuff, but the stuff we like, has a cause, and it's our mind. So if we can replace these activities of being reactive in negative, in negative ways, be responsive in otherness, in that interdependent, dependent arising world we live in, then we're creating the cause for feeling better in this moment because we're not focused on our own self-centered whatever needs, desires, cravings, aversions. Instead, we're and we're thinking about someone else and trying to be a good condition for them. That's going to cause happiness now and in the future. It works the same way. So we can embrace the opportunity to make each moment a condition for future happiness. That's what every moment actually is an opportunity for that. We have the habit of creating, seeing everything in terms of not getting what we want. And that is a condition to create the suffering in that moment about not getting what we want. And our actions cause suffering in the future. We're practicing that self-centered mind. Every time the thought comes up, I don't like this, we are practicing the self-centered mind. So we can have a response to that. We can develop a new habit of, as soon as we think that, what can we do? We can pause and do what? First pause, just pause,
Ask where's the I?
Well, you've just had the I don't like this. So you pause, you recognize, oh, this is about me. Oh, there I am again. And then we can choose what?
And also like to recognize what buttons are that situation practicing inside.
Yeah. So it helps us learn our triggers.
Choose to respond from a more skillful place.
Or at least respond that has nothing to do with you. Like one of the things I have to work with is, every time I don't like that, to go, so what? Is that relevant even? So what? We're not going to have days where nothing happens that we just like everything. So what? Do I want to make that the focus? Oh, I don't like this. Really? Is that the focus you want to have? Or do you want to just, oh, well, that's not helpful. Thanks for sharing. I say that a lot in my mind. Thanks for sharing, but I'm not going to follow that. Because this is what, yeah, Marian.
Just wonder, did anybody try to change the subject?
Oh, you see, you're still trying to fix people. You're stuck back in her conversation.
Exposed to all that.
You walk away.
Or since Go ahead.
Or couldn't you just say, I don't have a problem with that person?
Whatever. But-
What she said, I didn't see it that.
But what's the point here? The fact that you're still thinking about the conversation that Luciana brought up is what does it first signify? I'm just using you as an example.
Just here's about myself. Yeah, I do. No, say that it, say
The
that
fact
again.
that you've brought this up again.
Yeah.
And
I
it
think-
happened, took place, you know.
I think that would have been the practical thing to do, not
Well-
thinking about anybody's feelings, but if I didn't want to walk away from the table, I would have said, let's, I would have.
That's still about you, isn't it? I don't want to have to get up and walk away. I want this conversation to stop. How can I make it stop? That's all about you. All about you.
All right, I can see that.
So that doesn't help. That does not help. All that does is reinforce the habit of fixing things for your personal preference. I'm not saying that's not a healthy personal preference. You know, it is a healthy personal preference. But this is what we have to understand, is because that's what leads to that self-righteous attitude. They just, stop talking about it, and that you can say, I don't feel that way. Can we stop talking? I'm bored, whatever. But it's all about you. And what we're trying to do, and I'm not saying that might not be it depends on who they are. They're friends, whatever. But if you're trying to counter the self-cherishing thought, the self-centered focus, that's not going to do it. Because that's all about trying to get this situation to fit you by getting them to stop what they're doing. Because that's saying they're responsible for my discomfort. But no, they're not. You're responsible for your discomfort. Does any of this make sense? This is how specific we need to be working with our mind. Otherwise, we keep rehearsing our habits. They just look nicer. Oh, I didn't listen to them gossip. I stopped their gossiping. So that looks nicer. But if we're rehearsing the self-focused mind, we're not making progress.
I was there very uncomfortable, aware that I felt this.
Well, it's like what you said, that you said you knew it was about you. So that's what we want to zero in on. Oh, I've made this about me. I'm uncomfortable. How can I work with that? Make that an opportunity to not, to instead of looking at that. What's one of the things you could think if you want to turn it around? Not do anything. What is one of the things you can think?
There's suffering.
Yeah.
Sometimes like discomfort is a good thing because maybe the next situation like the way you're kind of uncomfortable in that situation, someone can see it as an opportunity to change.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity to train your mind. And one of the ways it's like, if you can see, oh, I don't like these conversations. So what can you use that for? That information. We're trying to train our minds. What information does that give us? What do we not want to do?
Don't do that. Expose our minds to people.
We also don't want to be that person. If we're listening to conversations like this, we've had conversations like this. That's what cause and effect's about. So it's that reminder, oh, I don't want to do that. And these poor folks are creating the cause to have these kind of conversations again and again and again, and suffer and always feel a threat that other people are talking about them in the same way, and da 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 da,
And people are about that.
So you know, the cycle just continues. You know, oh, may they, you know, be able to recognize that, and may I recognize that and not engage in these kind of conversations in the future. You know, because that will be the cause for happiness. So instead of taking our discomfort and trying to fix the situation, we take the discomfort and try to fix our futures, you know, by working on our mind, by having that, you know, like, oh, I'm not even, you know, comfortable. Like, you know, like for me, like when you're in those situations where there are people having a fight, you know, like, I don't know, you're over at somebody's house for dinner and they start having a fight with each other, the partners, you know, and you're like, oh, you know, this is terrible. Trust me, I have created that cause so many times. So it's that reminder, oh, how anger, expressed anger, how harmful it is, you know. And so you want to remember, yes.
I have an issue where if I see somebody suffering over their concern about somebody else and they can't do anything about it, yeah, I'm wanting to stop that.
You want to stop them.
I want to stop them from suffering.
But also, what is that about?
About me.
Yeah. You see, this is the thing. Instead of being reactive to just wanting to stop this situation we don't like, that's about us, folks. That's practicing our self-centered focus. You know, we could be thinking, oh, may they learn in the future that the very thing they're doing is creating the cause to do it again and to experience this suffering again and again, and having compassion for them.
And they're focused on the other, but they're overly focused, so it's causing them suffering.
Well, they're making it something that they should be able to fix.
Oh.
That's all about them too. You're both having the same reaction. You're just reacting to her reaction to whoever it was she's talking about. You know, you're doing exactly the same thing. It just looks better because you think it's, you know, oh, I know that she's creating her own suffering. But we're not recognizing we're creating our own suffering too in that very same moment. And in fact, in the very same way. This is what's hard. So when we hear, yes, go ahead.
I was watching a philosophy class. This teacher, he said that sometimes in philosophy, the question is more important than the answer. So sometimes, and I brought it to my life. So sometimes I try to question the situation or question myself. Why am I feeling this way? Why is this happening? Because it can have so many answers, but it helps.
Yes, and that's sort of this process. What is your name?
Selena.
Selena was just talking about how in philosophy class, if they were taught that sometimes the question is more important than anything else. And so in these situations, when we feel uncomfortable, being able to just go, whoa, why do I feel this way? You know, and start, you know, looking at that. And I'm just taking the shortcut to why you feel that way is because it's about you. You know, but we need to see what it is about me. Like sometimes people are really uncomfortable with gossiping because they really imagine them talking about you when you're not present. And it's just sort of icky, you know. Also, you know, whatever, it may be boring, but you also look at that, you know, that we just, you know, so we want to know, or we think that, you know, somebody said it can point out your own triggers. Ooh, you know, that touched a sore spot, you know, why? So that we're not reactive to this, you know, whatever is happening in this moment, when actually what we're thinking about is something that happened to us in the past. And so we're playing that out again, you know. So that's why pausing gives us that opportunity to respond rather than to react, because first we have to stop the reaction. And it gives us that opportunity to be more, that's, I'm not going to go there. Be more reflective about how our mind thinks and whether it's useful or not. Whether, maybe I need to work on thinking that way, going in that direction all the time. Or maybe I need to work on my relationship with so-and-so because I get wounded a lot in our conversations. This is hard work. The payoff is huge. So that's why we also need to think about why not being reactive feels better, just even in this moment, so that we don't have to think, oh yeah, the reward will be, countless eons down the road. We'd like some, benefit now, and there's an immediate benefit now. Because if we're not reactive, then at least we don't say something we regret. So it just opens up all sorts of possibilities. But we really need to recognize, like when we're thinking, well, I have the answers to this problem, I wish they'd catch on, that we're just trying to take our own discomfort away. It's really not about the other person, Because if it were, you would want a lot more time. You would take, you'd try to have a conversation with one of those people, and kind of talk about what was going on. I find that, just rehashing the same stories over and over again make me miserable, so, but it really disturbs you. Can I be of help? Can I listen? What's going on? And we have to, we do need to learn skills in these things. There are all sorts of available help with that, but they all start with pausing and being able to reflect. So nonviolent communication is that the right way, right order of words, is great. Courageous conversations, whatever. There are methods to kind of learn how to start conversations that can be productive, as opposed to just end up being hurling accusations at each other. There are a lot of them that have to do with relationships, like, your partner or your, maybe your coworkers or something. So it's just, but so it's available, and it generalizes to the, other people. So, all right. So thinking of triggers, one of the things that I think is important to notice is just, I think we talked about this last week, was just this idea that if you notice you're being very, that you seem to be very reactive, you want to look, and did I get enough sleep? Have I eaten? And why am I not taking care of myself? So, sometimes we can't help it. There's nothing we can do about it. But other things, we can do a little better. We can try to get rest. We can try to get some exercise. We can try to, give our bodies some conditions that help us to have, more opportunity to be able to pause and have a calm mind. But it's not just the fault of not getting enough sleep. It's also habits. So, but we want to give ourselves good conditions. Yes, Graciela.
I was thinking that the trigger, maybe I'm still trying to figure that out, because it's really, I don't want to be triggered, but it has to do with maybe thinking that I can fix it.
Okay, so Graciela says that maybe sometimes her trigger is that she can fix it. Yeah, and I think that's a common trigger in our culture, that we get triggered, and the trigger is I should be able to fix this. I think it must happen with parents all the time. You think, oh, I can, I should be able to fix this for my child, even if they're adults, it doesn't matter. So, and I think men in our society have been taught that they're supposed to fix things for the women in this culture, and the women are supposed to be nurturing and all those we have all sorts of rules, so it's just, but we need to understand that yes, we get conditioned by these expectations, and look at it. But we also want to look at that desire to fix it can also be about, I just want to stop being uncomfortable. That's just about us. And we think that fixing it will make us less uncomfortable. But the truth is, you'll just meet someone else who has the same thing, and because you really haven't worked on letting go of, of this idea that your discomfort's rising from externals.
So that's the way to fix
is to work on you. This is the thing about the more we see whatever's happening around us, especially those that are sources of discomfort, or opportunities to train our minds that our happiness and suffering isn't actually about what's happening. So if we're having, a reaction, that's a clue, big clue. I think you said at the beginning, that, oh, this must be about me because you're noticing your discomfort. So you've got to be the subject of that thought. And we want to change that orientation. That's why the practice of taking and giving can be so helpful. Like, oh, so I'm suffering in this moment. Okay, so what? Many people are suffering in this moment. Some have bigger sufferings, some have less sufferings in this moment, but doesn't that suck? Oh, it's just that this is, this is our world. We want to develop a mind that's not easily disturbed. And the less we give in to our disturbance, the less that we are reactive to it, the less we practice it, the less we, go on and on about it, we're creating the conditions to not be disturbed. It helps our mind become flexible. Instead of being like Pavlov's dog, as soon as the condition has arisen, that we just, bam, we react in our same old way. As Rinpoche says, the more difficult and dangerous times are, this is the best armor we have, is our thought transformation. It's recognizing that there is something we can do. It says that if you're no longer allowing yourself to be irritated by problems, you will suddenly be released from all your problems like an army dropping its weapons. We are carrying, our self-centered thoughts are weapons against our happiness. That's the true enemy, is our own self-centered thoughts, our self-centered focus. Okay. How is Brian? How is Brian?
He's, well, I was just mentioning, I've got a card for people to sign. He's in a rehab center and, he's getting good therapy and he seems to be doing okay. And they keep telling him he'll be out in 2 weeks. And I said, well, they said that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to quit focusing on that.
No.
In other words, he's making progress. So he fell,
I
and
think
so
he
he's in
is,
rehab.
Yes, he's kind of in a weird situation and he's dealing well with it,
Excellent.
practicing the teachings.
So
I'll tell
don't
him
forget
you
to
asked.
sign the card,
Yeah, I have
and
a card.
he might be, if those of you who know him, might want to call him and just
Right.
have a chat because he's stuck in rehab. So
Yep.
And he's very fun. He's a great perspective. So practicing in this way, Rinpoche says, when you succeed in this kind of practice and you develop the mind that is other focused rather than self-focused, that's cherishing others rather than cherishing the self, the happiness that you experience in your life, from moment to moment, because of that state of mind, it's known as the meditative state of the bodhisattva, known as all dharmas being pervaded by bliss. All dharmas just meaning all phenomena, So that's what is waiting for us. That's what all these opportunities can become. Instead of being the cause for more suffering, instead of being the cause for more reactivity, they can become the cause for bliss. So, okay. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed teaching here for the past several weeks. I really recommend Transforming Problems into Happiness, Rinpoche's book, as well as others. But it's always good to have something to kind of, to drill it in. It's very repetitive, drill it in again and again and again. And of course, this is someone who had mastered this. So it's sometimes you can kind of go, oh yeah, easy for you to say, but it's, but he got there from the same place we're at, by practicing. So, all right. So I'll be back in November. Look forward to it or not. So anyway, there's meditation class going on while I'm away, and that's a really important tool. So, and Tibetan Buddhism offers quite a mix of different kinds of meditations. It's not just okay, how do I relax and sit here and chill out my mind? So that's also part of it. Of course, we all want to be able to start with a place of a relaxed body, relaxed mind. So, but we also want to learn how to create a space to be able to be analytical and reflective about these different things, so we can motivate ourselves to change our minds. So we want to dedicate everything, all of our efforts, for several weeks, and every day, and all the positive things that you do all the time, and that you did this morning, that you'll do later, that, and that everybody else is doing too, and all the enlightened beings are doing, and all the bodhisattvas are doing. So we take all that good stuff, it creates the cause for happiness, and we're going to try to direct that result to others, which is about training our minds to think about others. Okay. Roll them.
When are you leaving?
Tuesday.
Well, wonderful, wonderful trip.
Yeah. Let's pray.
Thinking about you.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can tell you my view of things is almost always wrong. So there we go. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. Blind see forms. All right, don't be faster than us. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. Those weak with sorrow find joy, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So, of course, we also want to dedicate our merits to the long life of His Holiness, who I might see very soon. How cool is that? Okay. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you were the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's on page 234 in your book. Hopefully. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Ravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great ways of bodhicitta, victorious, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory. I feel like we do it around. Is that the phrase? All right. All right, guys, I'll miss you. Thanks, Nana, for all your help. Thanks, Sherry. Hi, Peggy. Bye, Peggy.
Thank you so much, Tendron. Have a wonderful trip. Can't wait to hear about it.
We'll see. Thanks, Arlen. Thanks, Mary. Thanks.